Hawking. Life on Earth is about a Life on Earth is about a 6. Honestly, sometimes it's hard just to get through the week without hearing those two horrible words. Month kerfuffle. No, climate change. I recently realised I don't know much about climate change at all. To many of us, it's just this all-encompassing term for bad shit we're endlessly told to worry about. Today, I'm going to explain the facts about climate change using normal human words, without telling you what to think, and without using this fucking diagram.
I won't even tell you to go vegan.
And that's a promise.
Excuse me?
Humans obsessively keep track of everything going on Earth, from the exact amount of water a carrot plant needs to thrive to the likelihood of being mortally wounded by a tumble dryer. I mean, we measure raindrops in deserts, whiskers missing from kittens, how toxic is copper, our gloves warmer than mittens. This video has been demonetized for copyright infringement.
Where I'm going with all this is one thing humans have been pretty obsessively measuring for the past 100 years is the Earth's temperature. And a great example of this is the British East India Company. Bet you didn't see that one coming.
At its peak near the start of the 19th century, this company had a total of around 450 ships in service over a period of about 40 years. These ships travelled all over the Atlantic and Indian Oceans. And you know what they were doing, other than promoting England's tyrannical occupation of India and further propagation of the slave trade? Well, most, if not all of their ships, were taking daily measurements of their exact locations, wind speed, air pressure, and temperature. We've actually gained from using the logs on these boats 273,000 different weather and climate records from the late 1800s and the early 1900s. It wasn't just the British East India Company either. Boat people clearly just didn't have much else going on. Sushi hadn't been invented yet, so what else was there to do? Water over here, water over there, and if you look down, well, golly gosh, it's some planks of wood. Better measure the wind speed again. Here's a random entry from a Dutch ship's logbook the day they encountered another British ship. As well as writing a fucking dissertation on, I don't know, clogs. They somehow found the time to draw a picture of the ship so detailed you wonder how they got anything else done.
So we're under attack. Wait, I'm just gonna get this line right. So it's all over. It's just these fucking sails!
So what we found from our frankly obsessive measuring of the planet is that over the last 100 years or so, things look like they have been getting warmer, as this graph shows. What this generally means is as we go back in time on this graph, it looks like the Earth was on average getting colder. And as we go forward in time, it looks like it's on average getting hotter. The thing is, how do we know what the reason for this is? Well, to work it out, let's look at the kind of things that can cause temperature increases on Earth. Let's start with the most obvious one, the sun. It's the sun. So how do we know the sun isn't just getting warmer?
No, don't tell me. We've been measuring it, haven't we?
Oh, get a life, NASA! More like, never at the spa, arseholes. NASA have actually been using satellites to measure the amount of energy reaching Earth from the sun since the late 1970s. This graph also tells us that we've not really seen an overall increase in the energy from the sun since around the 1950s. If we add the changes to the Earth's temperature we've seen over this same amount of time, we see the average surface temperature of the Earth has been steadily increasing, while the amount of energy we get from the sun has actually been slowly decreasing. We have data going back to the 1880s because humans have accurately kept an eye on the number of dark spots on the sun for hundreds of years. These are apparently cooler areas of the sun, so can be fairly accurately used to estimate the average temperature of the sun going back.
What are you doing, Copernicus?
Measuring the number of dark spots on the sun.
Why though?
I have no idea, I'm completely blind now. So another possible reason we're seeing an increase in our temperature is that the Earth is warming up as part of its natural cycle, and we're now at a time where the Earth should just be getting hotter. And this seems perfectly reasonable too. So here's a graph of how the Earth's temperature has changed over the last 800,000 years.
Excuse me, what?
I bet you're wondering how that was ever worked out. Well, do you know how we found that 5,000-year-old man buried in ice? Ozeti. I'm pretty sure that's not how you pronounce that. By looking at Ozeti, we learnt loads about what humans were like 5,000 years ago. And we can do a similar thing with the Earth's temperature and very old ice. If we can find ice that's 800,000 years old, we can actually learn about what the temperature on Earth was like when that ice froze. The ice in Greenland and Antarctica is perfect for this because it actually goes down for miles and miles. The further you go down, the older the ice gets. As we go down too, we also see different layers indicating the different years the ice formed. Like how the rings in a tree show its age. The thing is, should we to go back even 100,000 years, we have to dig for miles and miles deep into the ice, and that's what they do. Jesus, imagine meeting these people at a party.
So what do you do?
I'm an investment banker. And you? I dig out and examine miles of ice cores found deep in Antarctica and use them to measure the Earth's temperature. Would you like a drink?
Yes, please.
We can also do something similar by looking at very old shells of animals in the layers of sediment under the sea. Under the sea! This has left us with a pretty good idea of what the temperature on Earth has been like for the last 800,000 years. And without a doubt, it's all over the damn place. Surprisingly, the Earth does not like to stay the same temperature at all. And it definitely wasn't humans causing this big jump 800,000 years ago by suddenly driving their cars to work, unless Ötzi here has been hiding something. I know it! So the increase in the Earth's temperature we're seeing right now could just be one of those jumps we've seen loads of before happening again. So to know if that's the case, let's look into what caused these big changes in the Earth's temperature in the past. And to answer that, we need to look into the Milankovitch cycles, which were invented by Milutin Milankovitch. Let's zoom in a bit then and look at a graph that instead specialises on the Earth's temperature changes over only the last 400,000 years instead. Oh, good grief, who makes these graphs? Here, this one is less nightmarish to look at. If we look closely at this then, we can see the Earth's temperature follows a pattern every 100,000 years or so, where it starts at around the sort of temperature we are now, then gets colder for around 90,000 years, which is called a glacial. Then it gets warm for about 10,000 years, which is called an interglacial. This is basically where we are now. Things then sort of repeat themselves, and this is just how the Earth rolls. This is honestly a little bit crazy. Most of the time the Earth is actually 5 to 10 Celsius colder than it is today. In the grand scheme of things, it's like the Earth has popped the heating on for a few hours and the entire human civilization has developed before it's had a chance to cool down. I mean, for 90,000 years until roughly 10,000 years ago, Canada was almost completely covered in ice. Maybe this frozen period wasn't too bad then. But why? Why does this cycle happen? Well, that's where Milankovitch and his cycles come in. The Milankovitch cycles are all about the Earth and its orbit as it travels around the Sun. So here is the Earth going around the Sun. I know what it's called! If we look at the Earth, we can see it has something called obliquity.
The fuck did you just say to me?
This just means the Earth's tilt. You see, the Earth is actually slightly tilted on its axis. So instead of the top and the bottom of the Earth getting the exact same amount of sun at any one time, it actually varies over the course of a year. In July, for example, the top half of the Earth is tilted towards the sun. This means the upper hemisphere gets far more energy than the lower, which gives that part of the world its summer. The opposite is true for the lower hemisphere too, of course, which is why Australia has winter in July. The freaks! The thing is, our tilt isn't always the same. The Earth actually goes from a tilt of 22.1 degrees to 24.5 degrees and back again. And this all happens in a cycle. Its whole tilt to its maximum and back again only takes 41,000 years. Oh, well, blink and you'll miss it. It tilts like this because the other planets that travel around the solar system actually tug on the Earth with their gravity, causing it to wobble up and down. This is very important because when the Earth reaches its maximum tilt of 24.5 degrees, it makes things even more toasty and warm in the summers. This situation of high Earth tilt is what causes the planet to get warmer and warmer, ending glacial periods and causing these spiky increases in the Earth's temperature. An example of this was around 10,000 years ago. And around that same time, we saw the glacial period going on, and the Earth suddenly got nice and hot, and we were able to properly set up change that result in these sorts of events, but obliquity, because we just had our maximum tilt 10,000 years ago when that glacial period ended. We are now actually tilting away from the sun again. The takeaway from all this, though, is that our tilt changes very slowly. A change of just 2 degrees takes almost 20,000 years. Like the sun, the Earth is incredibly stable most of the time, and things change very slowly. As the Earth comes out of its glacial periods like we've discussed, its temperature rises by about 4 to 7 degrees. And this generally happens over the course of about 5,000 years. In the past 100 years on Earth, we've seen our temperature rise by about 1.1 degrees. This means things are getting hotter roughly 10 times faster than we would usually see, at a time where things look like they should be getting a little bit colder. It's like putting your ice cream in the freezer, then opening it later only to find it's caught fire.
So we've had a good look so far at the Earth's temperature in the past, but haven't really found anything definitive that can explain this sudden increase we've seen over the last 100 years. The next big theory we can talk about relates to the amount of CO2 in our... We already talked about that one much, yeah.
Granted, you hear a lot about CO2. The sun keeps us pretty warm, but strangely, it's not enough to really keep us going. On Earth, if we didn't have an atmosphere, our average temperature would actually be around minus 18 Celsius. This is mainly because at night, when the sun isn't facing us, we would lose all our heat to the cold, unforgiving depths of space and freeze to death. Jolly good. The reason we stay toasty is because there are certain gases that surround us called greenhouse gases, keeping us warm. The main gases are, of course,
This is the most important part. Pay attention to this part, guys.
Now, you would be right in thinking that these gases should just float away into space. But you see, the Earth is very big.
What, smack my ass and call me Susan?
Because the Earth is so big, its gravity holds in all these gases around it and they can't escape. These gases that surround us absorb heat energy from the sun, or heat energy that the Earth gives off, a little bit like a sponge. Then after a while, they shoot it all back out again in all directions, and the Earth soaks up some of this energy, like a sponge. This means the Earth gets much more heat energy fired at it, and things are a lot warmer than they would be without these gases. As a result, the average temperature on Earth is about 15 Celsius, and we can live on it. Just about. Basically, without this layer of gases and their warming effect, we would just be an icy ball floating around in the vacuum of space. We'd be like Mars, and you saw what happened to Jason Bourne there. He had to fertilize his own poo. So that's how CO2 works, and as we've discussed, humans just can't stop measuring things. So here's a graph showing how the CO2 concentration on Earth has changed going back to 803,719 BCE. What is this? Someone's address? Sorry, no, this just means this graph is going back 800,000 years. But again, how do we know how much CO2 was actually in the Earth's atmosphere going back all this time?
Well, you know when we dug up all that ice in Antarctica that went back 800,000 years? Well, that ice, just like all ice, has got little bubbles of gas trapped inside it. So the older the ice, the older the gas trapped inside it will be. So all we need to do is extract the air from very old ice, analyze the amount of CO2 in it, and that gives us a snapshot of what the atmosphere on Earth was like when that ice froze hundreds of thousands of years ago.
Interestingly, when we look at this graph closely, we find that over the last 800,000 years, the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere and the average temperature of the Earth seem to be very closely related. Generally, when the temperature of the Earth goes up, so does the concentration of CO2, and vice versa. But if we were to overlap these graphs like some sort of mad graph scientist, then zoom in, we see something very interesting. Now, I've tried to shield you from particularly boring graphs so far, but this one, it must be done. I'm removing the bag. This is a graph of the warming that took place at the end of the last glacial period that zoomed in on. The red line here is the temperature in the Antarctic, and the blue line is the Earth's CO2 concentration. When the Earth warmed up 20,000 years ago, we can see that it first got warmer, then CO2 levels started to rise. We can see a similar thing here in this equally unpleasant graph. In several instances over the last 800,000 years, it seems the Earth's temperature first dropped, then the levels of CO2 in the atmosphere dropped. What all this appears to mean is CO2 does not drive the Earth getting warmer or colder.
Holy fuck, it's a smoking gun! This is a very important point, especially if you're skeptical to current claims that CO2 is what is causing the temperature to rise. You see, if we look at what's going on today, it looks like CO2 levels started increasing in the late 1800s, and then we began to see an increase in the Earth's temperature shortly after.
To understand everything that's going on here, let's look into the temperature rise at the end of the last glacial period. As we've discussed, this increase was likely caused by the Milankovitch cycles making the summers on Earth much hotter. But what does this have to do with CO2? Well, the answer to this can be explained using Coke.
Oh, finally. Okay, so here is a cold can of Coke. This represents the chilly Earth before the Milankovitch cycles warmed it up a bit. And here is a slightly warm can of Coke. This represents the Earth after the Milankovitch cycles warmed it up a little. Now, before we start our experiment, we need to know that gases can dissolve in water in almost the exact same way salt can. Coke is effectively just flavoured water with lots of CO2 dissolved in it, and this makes it bubbly. When we open a can, CO2 comes out of the liquid and escapes as a gas. But a fascinating property of most liquids is the colder they are, the more gas that can dissolve into them. This is just a law of nature and is explained in a branch of chemistry called physical chemistry. But it's bullshit, so don't study it. I really hate physical chemistry.
So when I open the cold can ASMR style, but when I open the warmer can ASMR styles, we have noticeably more CO2 being released. I really didn't think that would work.
This is because warm liquids can't hold on to as much gas as cold liquids. This is why a warm can of Coke will give off more gas.
What I'm getting at here is that after the Milankovitch cycles caused the Earth to warm up a little, the seas would have had to start releasing more of the CO2 they had dissolved in them, since warmer liquids can't hold on to as much gas. This is likely to be part of the reason why we see an increase in CO2 concentrations on Earth just after we see a temperature increase. This is also quite relevant because kickstarting the end of a glacial period actually needs quite a bit more heat than what we would get from the Earth tilting an extra 2 degrees towards the sun. You see, many of the recent glacial periods have lasted around 90,000 years. Coming out of them definitely seems to require a bit of extra oomph. So what seems to happen is the Earth is warmed slightly by the Milankovitch cycles. This then causes the seas to release more CO2. This CO2 then increases the Earth's greenhouse effect, making it even warmer, which in turn causes the seas to release even more CO2, and things very quickly get warmer and warmer. This is demonstrated on this lovely graph here. This graph also shows the Earth getting warmer at the end of the last glacial period like the one we saw before, but this one is a little bit more detailed and uses every method we have available to estimate the Earth's average temperature as accurately as possible. So, here the CO2 levels of the atmosphere are listed as yellow dots, and the blue line is the Earth's average temperature. If we look closely, we can see the Earth's temperature did lead CO2 levels initially. But 90% of the Earth's warming only happened after we saw a major increase in CO2 levels, which would have been caused by the seas releasing CO2 after the initial warming of the Earth. And once this rise did happen, CO2 levels are what led the Earth's temperature increase. Temperature and CO2 levels do seem to be completely related. One has almost always affected the other. So this is probably why scientists are getting their knickers in a bit of a twist. If we look back 800,000 years, we see the Earth's CO2 concentration hasn't ever really made it above 300 ppm. ppm just being a measure of concentration of CO2. But in just the last 100 years, CO2 levels have increased to over 400 ppm, meaning the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere is now 33% higher than we've ever known it to be in the last 800,000 years. Shortly after this CO2 increase, we've also seen a temperature rise on Earth of around 1.1 Celsius that has happened 5 to 10 times faster than almost any other global temperature rise we've ever measured. This change to our temperature is happening even though we are tilting away from the sun, and the amount of solar energy hitting the Earth each year is steadily reducing.
Oh, I'm getting pretty. I don't know if I can handle it.
So clearly carbon is one sick son of a bitch. But where is it all coming from? And is it really the only thing that could be making the Earth warmer? There's a fancy graph on Bloomberg that does quite a colourful job of this, and that's what matters. No need for a paper bag here. This graph first shows the temperature changes we've seen on Earth since 1880. It then maps on the same graph a collection of possible causes. Here, for example, is the estimated heating and cooling effect that the sun's orbit will have had on our temperature over that same period. The same has been done for the effects of volcanoes, deforestation and land use, and even the ozone layer. All of these effects combined don't seem to show any significant impact on the CO2 or temperature changes we're seeing on Earth. Based on what we know about CO2, how it has affected our temperature in the past, and a lack of any other culprits, CO2 is generally deemed the most likely cause for the increase to the Earth's temperature we've seen in the last 100 years.
In that case then, it's important to look at why the levels of CO2 in the atmosphere are increasing so much. And if you were to go with what everyone else is saying, you'd probably hear the words fossil fuels. But what are fossil fuels?
Fossil fuels are basically just plants and animals that died millions of years ago. Over time, these animals sank into the ground and eventually turned into coal and oil. This happens because coal and oil is mostly just carbon, and plants and animals too are mainly carbon. That's what people mean when they say we are carbon-based life forms. When we burn these carbon-based fuels for energy, the carbon in them reacts with oxygen, carbon dioxide is made, and the circle of life is complete. The reason a lot of people are saying burning fossil fuels is the cause of the increase of CO2 in the atmosphere is because we only really started burning them in bulk around this sort of time period, which we call the Industrial Revolution. This is when trains and factories really started burning coal and oil and gas for energy. Very shortly after this is when we started to see the increase in CO2 in the atmosphere, which we're still seeing today.
But again, how do we know it was the burning of fossil fuels that caused this increase in CO2? It could just be a coincidence. Well, there's an interesting fact about the air around us that may provide some answers.
You see, when air floats up into the sky, it actually absorbs cosmic rays from space. This eventually causes this air to contain a very small amount of carbon that is radioactive. This is called carbon-14, and all the fresh air around us contains a tiny amount. The carbon in fossil fuels, however, has been trapped away underground for millions of years. This carbon hasn't seen cosmic rays for a very long time, so it contains almost no carbon-14. This also means whenever fossil fuels are burned, they produce CO2 gas that has almost no carbon-14. This graph shows us the average amounts of carbon-14 that have been present in our atmosphere since the 1880s. Over time, we've seen the levels of carbon-14 steadily reducing since the Industrial Revolution. This indicates that the atmosphere is being filled with carbon dioxide that has much lower levels of carbon-14. And the most likely source of this CO2 is from burning fossil fuels. Even more interestingly, we were only able to measure this effect until the 1950s, which is when we started detonating nuclear bombs on Earth. Because these bombs make the air around us substantially more radioactive, we can no longer really rely on this method.
They irradiated their own planet?
That's right, Quark, we really fucked up. There are also atoms called carbon-13 in the air that actually tell us similar things to carbon-14. These levels aren't affected by setting off nuclear bombs. So we can see here carbon-13 levels in the atmosphere have also dropped steadily in the same way carbon-14 has. So if all this theory is true, then it's all carbon's fault! Oh no, I'm making it worse! The main thing I've noticed about climate change is it's only ever described as this wall of bad news and serious faces and warnings that we're completely fucked unless every human on Earth goes vegan overnight, but then we're told eating more avocados is socio-politically worse than pounding a kilo of cocaine after every meal, so I don't know what to think.
Avocado toast? Cocaine toast? Why not have both?
The Earth forming a few degrees as it's currently set to do so, based on the current amount of CO2 we are producing, will bring a variety of issues to every single part of the world. There's no need to go into detail about any of these, as you can probably guess, though a few examples would be the ice caps melting will likely cause widespread flooding. Large areas will get too hot to live and grow food, and forest fires will continue to get far more frequent. Stuff like that. Trying to reduce the amount of CO2 we make then is all well and good, but what do we change? Everything? Go full into the wild and eat nothing but sweet peas and starve to death with a tear of happiness in our eyes that we did the right thing?
A lot of the information and graphics coming up were provided by Dr. Simon Clark, and if you're interested in these types of videos, he makes them a lot more regularly than me. So please do have a look.
So here's a rough breakdown of where all the human-produced CO2 comes from. See, if we're going to trim things down, we must first inspect the stem. The main thing to note here is that 72% of all our CO2 emissions comes from energy use. Oh, well, simple. No! Energy use is such a big chunk because so much of our energy comes from burning the big bad Fs. What? Oh, fossil fuels, sorry. If we expand this, we can see that 43% of this chunk is from making electricity and the burning of fuels such as natural gas, which is also a fossil fuel, for heating and cooking. A whole 17% is also from transport, so cars and planes and boats and such. Here is the area we must focus on first, simply as it's the biggest area. To reduce this whole delicious size, we must first simply use less fossil fuels and more renewable energy. Now this all sounds like a lot of fairy tale perfect world shit where we power cars on princess farts and happy thoughts, but if we look into it, renewable energy is stuff like biofuels, solar panels and wind turbines. It's called renewable because once it's set up, it can make energy effectively forever. We take energy from places like the sun and the wind and use it to make power. We don't have to dig giant holes in the ocean or deserts to mine coal or suck up oil, and we have an endless source of low-cost energy. And that's because renewable energy is not this economic hole of depressing expense. In 2016, the fossil fuel industry was subsidized $360 billion by governments to keep it on the path it's on, versus renewable, which was given $140 billion. Renewable energy was subsidized less than half of fossil fuels, even though in America, renewables are by far the fastest growing energy resource, and solar energy is the fastest growing in the world. And because it makes economical sense, the transition is happening. In 2016, 26.5% of the world's electrical energy came from renewables. This is due in part because 146 of 197 countries have set targets to increase renewable energy for electricity. Green electricity is hip. Dog. But this is only for electricity. It doesn't include natural gas for heating and cooking, which is a huge part of this deadly but delicious pie. Only 10.3% of the energy we use to produce heat is from renewable sources. This is likely because renewable gas is less trendy. Only 48 countries have set targets to use increased amounts of renewable gas. The same is true of transport. Only 0.3% of our cars and planes and such use renewable energy.
As you can probably see, that a big part of this is all Politics. Oh, my favourite. It's largely down to politicians and governments to choose to start building more renewable energy sources, stop subsidising fossil fuels so much, and instead start subsidising renewable energy.
Yeah, like that's never gonna happen.
This may seem obvious, but most parties in any election release a document outlining all of their claims. All you really need to do is search for terms you care about, like renewable, and you can compare the pledges and see who is doing what. I did this for 2 of the leading UK parties' most recent documents, and as you can see here, one of our leading parties clearly doesn't give a flying toss. To switch, I searched 100% green energy provider and found a comparison page that listed companies by how much of their energy is sourced from renewables. The best one to find is one that provides 100% green electricity and gas, which as we discussed isn't a huge priority. Wait, who put that there? I'm going to do a charity stream on this channel next weekend, starting Saturday the 11th of July at 12 PM UK time. This will be to raise money for the international charity Solar Aid, which provides solar-powered lights to Malawi and Zambia to reduce the need for the burning of expensive, dangerous, and polluting kerosene lamps. As I said, he does not want to stay. As I said at the beginning, this video is entirely non-profit, so I'll be personally donating £8,000 on top of whatever we raise on Saturday. In the stream, I'm going to be playing Banjo-Kazooie all the way through, even if it takes all night. Even Sid will be there, so it will definitely be worth turning up. Finally, let's talk about the cow in the room. The Spectre burger at the feast, the beef in the mouth. Stop! Now, I'm about to suggest that if you aren't already, that you don't go vegetarian or vegan, so hold on to your horse. Meat. You see, agriculture and the production of food is the next biggest cause of CO2 emissions, which makes sense given that we all, eat food. But what foods produce the most CO2? Here are a selection of foods and the average amounts of CO2 they produce per kilo of that food. So right out of the gate, cows produce the most CO2. Now this is because cows mostly eat grass, and grass is basically inedible. What? This means cows have to ferment grass in their numerous tum-tums, which in turn creates methane gas which they then burp or fart out. This is troublesome because methane is actually 84 times more effective at heating the earth than CO2 is. So this is why everything to do with cows is pretty large. Animal farming is generally the biggest contribution because animals fart a lot, need a lot of food, and need big fields to pasture. Is pasture a verb? Generally, fruit and veg are the low offenders because they're just plants. Now, I'm a vegetarian and have been since I cooked the beef Wellington, and I swear these two events are completely unrelated. The thing is, people don't want to go vegetarian or vegan, and honestly, I don't fucking blame them. Look at this delicious chicken. I also think nothing puts people off this topic more than being told by a total stranger what they should and shouldn't be eating. All I hope to do is show you these stats and let you make up your own minds based on what you want to do. It seems the best starting point for anyone who wants to get involved in this is to simply try eating less beef products or products relating to it. Interestingly, poultry is far less responsible than many other foods. So giving up cheese, for example, in place of eating more chicken also makes perfect sense if that's what you want to do and you don't mind executing a few chickens because fuck chicken! The point is, if you want to get involved, just mess around with your diet. Throw in an asparagus occasionally just to totally fuck with your palate. And that's it really. I hope you enjoyed yourself and learned at least one fact. Sorry.
So, he hopes you learned one fact. I hope you learned more. I saw that popped up on my YouTube feed, so I watched it, and I said, you guys need to see that because, it's just another source of the same information that I've been giving you. Just another source. Somebody else saying the exact same thing. Yeah, I wouldn't use a LED. I'd use a 600 watt high pressure sodium. I wouldn't go LED. But, if you're gonna use LED, you're gonna use LED, bro. It's like you don't listen to me on here, so just do what you're gonna do, homie. I don't even know why some people bother asking me fucking questions, They obviously don't listen to me. Anyhow, Tom Scott. Joe Scott. Huh. Interesting. Close that. 2 hours and 5 minutes until the show. That's right. We're going to have fun, man. It's going to be a great show. I just wanted you guys to have a little something you could, entertain you, keep you occupied this afternoon until the show at 4 o'clock today. It's too bad that more people don't stay and listen to this very important information. It really is. I wish I knew who the people were who don't want to hear that the world is fucking ending and that they're too much of a pussy to hear the fucking facts, so I could fucking block them from my show. If you're one of those fucking pussies that didn't want to watch that video because the information is too fucking real for you, then I'm too real for you. And you're too fucking fake for me, and you're too pussy for me. So get the fuck out of here. If you just popped in because you noticed the fucking informational video was ended, the rest of you, let's get high. And it's really disappointing to me how ignorant some of my audience is. I give you a video, it's going to tell you everything that I've been telling you. It's another source. And people just don't want to fucking hear it. You just don't want the facts. And it just blows my mind that my audience doesn't want the fucking facts. Hey, Slowski, what's up? My own audience. Hey, Doc, I love your avatar. My own audience, I tell you, this is the perfect video. You guys should all watch this. And, I could get you guys 19 of you to stay, and that's cool. The 19 of you guys. And the people who left and came back because you didn't want to watch the video, you guys can suck my dick. All right? If that's why you left. If it's not, I don't want to fucking hear from you. I don't give a fuck. All right? I'm just saying. If there are any people out there that saw that was a video about climate change and you didn't want to hear it, you're not my friend because you're not a friend of fucking humanity. Because you want to ignore the facts. You're a fucking piece of shit. Now you're like, oh, but nay, there's nothing we can do about it. You told us, you're right, there is nothing we can do about it. But you can always listen to the facts and you can always listen to the fucking truth. And that's what I try to bring you. And you should always listen. I wasn't here for the video, no balls. And you should always want the truth, guys, Don't be a kid fucking believing in Santa Claus. We've grown past that, man. Cyber style, no law regarding cannabis. Cannabis isn't just for all. Cheers, everybody. Those of you guys that stayed, there was 19 of you. Thank you, guys. I was doing laundry and dishes. During that video. It is so hot outside. It's not about worrying, it's just people should know. Not about, well, there's nothing we can do about it, so worrying doesn't fucking change a goddamn thing. But you should at least not be a fucking idiot going into it. You should at least know there are some steps you can take, and that if you're going to, you need to do it now. You need to start working towards that now and not wait until it's too late. That's my message. It's all about preparing yourself, like Frankie here says. Being prepared. Why are you wearing black then, my guy? Timbo. Yeah, that doesn't even fucking make sense. Tomato for my garden? As they ripen. Good. Oh, you want one? You want tomato? There you go. You can have one too. Rogan says I want a tomato. Oh, I've dropped some frames, 540. did you guys? I mean, I guess I should go over it a little bit with you guys. In that video, they explain that the Earth goes through cycles, you know, and it showed you the graph of the temperatures rising and falling, rising and falling. And the problem with the last set of numbers is it's not falling; it's staying up high. It's not going down. And you know, there's people out there like Donald Trump that say the Earth warms and it cools and it's the big cycle and everything will go back to the way it was. That video addresses why it's not going to go back to the way it was. It's because we're here and we're producing the CO2. We've got the livestock, we've got the fossil fuels. We're the ones doing it. We've never produced livestock and fossil fuels at this level before. It's us. That's why the temperature's not going back down. Now, I've got a nightmare scenario for you guys, all right? And it's real. California has just gone past the 2 million acre burned for the fire season. That means that we broke the record. It's the hottest fire season on record ever. And we're not even into the 2 hottest months yet. September and October. That's when the worst fires break out, when it gets super hot. These temperatures that we've got right now, 100 degrees 2 days in a row. Everything is dried out. There's no water on the ground. And if you get a drop of water in the sun, it'll create a magnifying glass effect and start a fucking fire. Just a drop, a drop of urine from an animal is all it would take. Two more hours. 2 hours. Graham will be here in 2 hours. If all goes as planned, I mean, I haven't heard back from him. Actually. Skype was crashing my computer. After I fixed the, I was having problems with the bad blocks of data, and I got some additional software to help with that, and it's fixed that problem. But then I started getting crashes again, and I went and I looked, and it said it was Skype. So I deleted Skype. I'm like, okay. Yeah, Timbo, call me Nay, bro, anyway. I don't know what you're saying is not quite true. Google North American buffalo. Millions? Dude, you know how many fucking cows we have, Timbo? So you're a fucking liar. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You called me by my first name. I'm blocking you from my fucking live stream. Fuck off. Fuck off. The radio was playing Cardi B songs today because of all the drama. Oh, good for them. Everybody's capitalizing off of Cardi B's politics. I love it. Everybody fucking profits, man. Everybody wins. Hey, Mr. Brimer. He gone. That's right, Brian. He gone. He gone. The guy seems to think that buffalo disproved the fact that livestock raised CO2 levels. We just watched a whole movie that explained all of it. And then somebody comes in here, and that's exactly why I show you guys these videos. So when some fucking cunt idiot pedophile like that comes into our live stream and lies, you all know the truth. You all knew the truth. Every single one of you. When that motherfucker came in and said, oh no, it was, don't you know, there used to be millions of buffaloes, so it's not true. Not a single one of you spoke up. I had just given you the goddamn video, and not a single one of you spoke up about it. So speak up, man. Open your mouths, man. Be more proactive. Put these idiots in their fucking places. You know? I want you guys to have a voice, man. I don't want you guys to sit around and fucking be worthless. You know, when you guys don't say anything, when someone comes in and says that, it kind of hurts my feelings. You know? I wish you guys would engage with people like that a little bit more. Maybe you guys didn't see it. That's cool. I probably blocked him before you got a chance to see it. I'm not even thinking. I blocked the guy pretty quick. But he had it fucking coming. Okay, all boxes are out. Everything has been shipped. This is what I put in my coffee, if you guys wonder. Cold Stone Creamery, sweet cream. There it goes. International Delight. That's what I put in my coffee. You can't see all the comments? Yeah, I know. I figured. But now you guys know. The next time you're on social media and some idiot fucking tries to tell you that their explanation for rising CO2 levels is, oh no, CO2 levels aren't rising because we've had buffalo. We used to have millions of buffalo here. You guys know what to tell them now. Well, I'm just kind of curious. When we had all those buffalo roaming around the United States, I'm just kind of curious. Did we have cars driving across the highways? Did we have fucking factories billowing fucking smoke and CO2 pollution? Did we have fracking? Did we have international fucking boating pouring their fucking pollution? Fucking airplanes flying across the sky? Oh, that's right. He didn't fucking think about that, did he? That's why you guys watch my channel. Because I think about shit like that. I think about the fucking basic shit that some fucking idiot doesn't think about. I don't mind y'all being fucking stupid. I don't mind anybody being a fucking idiot. I understand, man. I understand uneducated morons. I do. But when you're an uneducated moron and you try to fucking tell me that I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, so you can spew your bullshit to my audience, that's when you get blocked instantly. And that's how that works. That's your wives and your favorite? Oh, Doc, that's funny. Hey, Randy. Oh, that's delicious. Oh, that's delicious. Dunkin' Donuts double cream and sugar creamer. Wow. Is that what it's called? Double cream and sugar creamer. I like that about this stuff is you don't have to use a lot. It's concentrated, you know. I bought like 5. I think I bought 6 of those things. Got them in the fridge. And you can get them on Amazon. They will spoil. You have to refrigerate them. They ship them to you in a refrigerated box. This is the maple pecan coffee from Starbucks. It is awesome. In the Keurig, this is some of the best tasting flavored coffee I've ever had in my entire life. Maple is all I can really taste. It's just mapley and really coffee. It's really good. I wish it was that big, man. So we got the Roadster here. I built a stair for him so he can get up in the Roxer, and he's already used it. So it's just an old air conditioning unit that I screwed a towel into to put a pad on top so he can just hop on that and then hop in the Roxer. Oh, I said Roxer and he perked right up. You see that? So his eyes, I'm hoping it's all the smoke. His eyes have been crudding up more than usual, and I'm hoping this isn't a usual thing, like, for him. I'm thinking maybe it's from the smoke in the air, from the fires. It is smoky as fuck outside today, but I keep up with his eyes, man. I'm on it constantly. Oh, that coffee, man. I can't stop raving about it. I got these potatoes. I got these tomatoes. I ate all the pole beans. What? From the garden, son? Oh, wow. All that food. It's great. How is the garden looking today? The plants are still standing. The flowers are still standing, which is great. That's a great thing. Yeah, I got to get out there and cut down that sweet Afghani delicious. I'm sure it's done by now. Alan, I really wish you would contact me on Twitter instead of mentioning this on the show, okay? Send me a message on Twitter about that. All right, I'll gladly send you your tracking information, but from now on, any questions about shipping or anything having to do with naysgarden.com, you guys text me on Twitter at naysgarden. It's the only place I'm going to talk to you guys from now on. All right? This is not my storefront. This is my podcast. My storefront is naysgarden.com. Gotcha! Boom! Busted. That's what I was waiting for. I don't use Twitter. Yeah, of course you don't. Of course you don't use Twitter. I'm so glad I got you. That goes for the rest of you. It goes for the rest of you. That's where I met Graham Elwood, everybody. Understand that. It was on Twitter. So, you guys got to come to Twitter, man. All of you. You need to download the app. It's free. And when you need to message me something having to do with that, and preferably only that, preferably, then it's at Nate's Garden, and you can send me a private message there about it. But don't just private message me for the sake of private messaging me. If you are chit-chatting me on Twitter, you've probably already been blocked. I'm not there to chit-chat. But I will take your business information, texts, whatever. Don't chit-chat me. This is the chit-chat place, right? This is where we chit-chat. All right? You guys all need to realize that. We're friends here on the podcast. That Twitter, that's for business. Important shit. I'm old. Gotta learn new things. Yeah, man. Get on there and help me out, man. You're going to love Twitter. Alan, once you start following the people on Twitter that you want to hear from, like I want to hear from Graham Elwood. I want to hear from y'all, right? I want to hear from Ron Placone. You guys check out Ron Placone on YouTube, Ron Placone on Twitter. It's at Ron Placone. And Ron Placone, Get Your News On with Ron. His show is Ron Placone on YouTube. YouTube, Twitter, and ronplacone.com. We are conquering the world from Twitter, man. It's working. Yeah, Doc's like, I deleted Facebook. I mean, I need Facebook to broadcast to. I mean, especially now, YouTube's got my channel down for another 10 days, I guess. They rejected my copyright. I'm like, I don't know why. I'm like, you won't even show me what it is I did. I mean, I know you don't have to, but it would just be nice if I could see what it was I fucking did on a grow update, I guess. Watch these plants fucking after a feeding or something like that. From 2017. Quarter of the hour. Cannabisism, tisms for all. No law regarding cannabis. Cheers, everybody. Cyber style. Cyber style. We got Graham Elwood here in an hour and 45 minutes. I think I'm going to clean my bong out before that next show. It's clogged. Hey, Cobra Dad, what's up, son? How's your foot, man? Oh, your foot hurts. That sucks, bro. I hope you're putting the pain oil on it, man. Voltaire cream and Aleve. God, I'm up here walking on these goddamn stairs and mountains all freaking day, bro. It's a miracle that shit hadn't happened to me. Oh, you're out of triage oil? I'll send you some more. You gave out a bunch, didn't you? We're going to be talking to Graham today about Make America Get Along, a new MAGA, new meaning for the letters MAGA, Make America Get Along. Because I know we can all get along, and I know there's a lot of anger, but we can leave our anger, you know, we can all process our anger. You know, I've got a speed bag in my garage. If I wanted to put air in it and go hit it, I could go do that. Or, you know, I got a heavy bag if I really want to take out some anger. I can go for a hike. You know, it's a good way to just get out of your thoughts, you know, and just depressurize. You can go for a walk. You can work out. You can clean. That's one thing I do when I'm upset. You know, if I'm in a relationship with a girl, you know, and the house is messy and they want it clean, they know all they got to do is piss me off, and I'm going to walk around the house, I'm going to clean the whole fucking house. It's my process. I clean when I'm angry. But I don't go out in the street when I'm angry and hit people. I don't go out in the street and hurt people when I'm angry. That's one of the things we're going to be talking to Graham about today. And it's very important. Oh, yeah, Rogan likes it in his ear, man. I put it in his ear, and it soothes all that. He's got that buildup in there. And it also helps clean it out. When I put the oil in there, and I come back like a half hour later, it all breaks apart a lot easier. It softens it up. It's almost like, you know, like the way it works on psoriasis. All right, Teresa. There is this woman on. There's this woman on the internet. She's a black woman. She's morbidly obese. And she's teaching a class, and in it she tells people that all white people are racist, and she's got it written up on a sign. It says all white people are racists in like big letters. And I'm like, well, I'm just not going to take the word of somebody who thinks that overeating doesn't make you morbidly obese. I mean, if all white people are racist, then how can all black people not be racists too? Huh. You know, if all white people are racists and black people have been faced with nothing but racism their entire lives, then certainly they're racist too, right? Wow, what an ignorant statement she made. She's in no position to stand there and try to say something like that. It's hilarious. How fucking ignorant. You guys are really stimulating me with all of this chat, man. I don't know what to do with all of this information. And it's too fucking hot to go outside. It really is. It was 100 degrees outside in the shade. Hottest part of the day is right now. Let me go look. 2:30. Got blinds closed and shit. Oh yeah, 100 degrees in 100 degrees in the shade. Why no LEDs? Because you'll get low production, Brad. You'll get you won't get anywhere near as thick of a bud as you will, or as much yield as you will if you get a light that gives you more power. The more power, the more energy, the more return you'll get. And when it says 600 LED, don't believe that shit. Those fucking little LEDs aren't putting out 600 watts, bro. Get yourself a 600 watt high pressure sodium. HPS. High pressure sodium, 600 watt. That's what you want. Get it in a cool tube. Get it with a fan to keep it cool. Get a little air conditioning unit, whatever. I mean, or just have sad little tiny fucking nothing for buds. I mean, they'll look okay, but then once you fucking dry them out, bro, you're gonna be crying. You'll have enough bud for a day. High pressure sodium, HPS. They kind of look yellow. They have double-ended bulbs, man. They have a cool tube in them that runs fan through the fucking the light is in the in the ventilation, or you get a hooded light. I mean, that's what I've got. I've got hoods. They take up a lot of space, but they allow the light to project a nice array because it's got a back reflector inside the hood. So those reflectors spread the light out nice. And you end up getting more bang for your buck when you use a hooded reflector like that. Right on, Doc. Oh yeah, keep it open, bro. All right, you guys, I will see you here in an hour and a half. We're going to have Graham Elwood. I hope you guys are excited as I am. Remember, check out Ron Placone, check out Jimmy Dore, check out Steph Zamorano and Graham Elwood and Lee Camp. And hit up Lee Camp on Twitter at Redacted Tonight at Lee Camp, and ask them if they will consider having Lee over in the garden for an interview. We would love to talk to him. So, you guys, thanks so much. Have a great hour and a half until the next episode, which is coming right up. I'm excited. Okay. Bye, guys. Hey, look, even Frankie's waving goodbye. Thanks, Frankie. Frankie's helping me out. Be prepared. Sydney, Nova Scotia. Be prepared.